everyone, it's Celine from Blue Calla Patterns and welcome to video 4 for the Lupin laptop bag. In this video, we're going to assemble our gusset. You're going to need the following things. Both of your 1.5-inch rectangle rings, your 24-inch double pull zipper, all 4 of your zipper panel pieces, so the 2 lining pieces with fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side, and your 2 exterior pieces with fusible woven interfacing and then your foam interfacing. Your strap connector piece, so if you're using cork or vinyl like I am, there's no interfacing, but if you decided to use fabric, it should have also a fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. Your gusset exterior piece with foam interfacing, and if you used fabric, there should be a layer of fusible woven interfacing before you add the foam. And then your gusset lining piece. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the strap connector to the gusset exterior. Grab your strap connector piece, and then we're going to draw a line down the center on the wrong side. So because it's 3 inches wide, you're going to make the center mark at 1.5 inch from each of the longer edges. I did a little math there. Okay, so now if you used fabric for your strap connector, what you're going to do is you're going to press in both halves of the strap, wrong sides together, so that this other edge meets that center line in the middle. And you're going to do this along the entire length and press. Because I'm using cork, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to fold and sew the strap connector at the same time. And you're going to sew, whether it's cork or vinyl or fabric, once you have this folded towards the center line, you're going to sew it down about 1/8 of an inch from that center line along both sides of the line. Okay, so I have both halves of the strap sewn in towards that center line. Now on the wrong side, I'm going to place some double-sided tape along the center. And I'm not going to go from end to end. I'm actually going to start the tape about 4.5 inches away from this shorter end. So right about here. And then I'm going to stop 4.5 inches from the other side. Now, if you don't have double-sided tape, you can just use fabric glue. Just takes a bit more time because you have to let the glue dry before you start sewing. And I have 2 different kinds of double-sided tape. This one here is actually a leather tape, so it's super sticky. You definitely don't want to put this tape where you're going to be sewing, because it will gum up your needle to the point where you start skipping stitches. Okay, so now I want to stop 4.5 inches from this end, so that's about right here. Okay, now you're going to need your gusset piece. So we want to tape this to the center. So we do want to find the center of the gusset. So it is 3 3/4 inches wide. And so the center is 1 7/8 from either side. I'll do that here. And then I'm actually going to add some center marks sort of along the way as well, because I want to make sure that it's centered the whole way. So 1 7/8. Okay, that should be good. So now you're going to need your rectangle rings. And you're going to pass the rectangle ring through one. And then we're going to fold this over 4 inches. So 4 inches of the strap should be folded over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here is where we want it to fold over. We want the ring to be inside that space. So like this. Okay, so a portion of the strap, 4 inches, to be folded over. So we need to and you need to remove the tape backing, but apparently I'm having a lot of trouble doing this. Okay. And then I lost my 4-inch mark. All right, so that looks to be about 4 inches. And then I'm going to leave the tape backing there, and I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. So pass this over and fold it over 4 inches on this side. That looks to be good. And take the backing off. Okay. And so now we're going to glue the connector to the gusset. Now, the best way to make sure it is properly centered is to mark center marks here on your gusset. So I'm going to mark it top and bottom. And then do the same thing for this. I'm just going to replace my backing a little bit here so I don't glue it together. Okay, fold this in half. And do the same thing. Okay. So I'm actually going to try to take off the backing in the center here and start from the center and work my way to the ends. Okay. So I have some center marks here and center marks here that I'm trying to line up right now. That looks about right. Okay, and then we can just remove and finish. Move this over so you can see what I'm doing. So we're now going to sew the strap connector to the gusset, and essentially going to be sewing a giant rectangle box. So you're starting along one edge, 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the connector, sewing all the way down. Now, when you get too close to the rectangle ring, I would like you to stop sewing about 3/4 of an inch from that folded edge. And you don't want to get, you want to get close, but not too close, because we're going to need to sort of move this out of the way when we're attaching our zipper panels to this gusset. If you sew too close, then it's going to be very hard to move it out of the way, and you won't have a good time. Okay, so when you get about 3/4 of an inch from this rectangle ring, you're going to sew across and then sew along the other edge. And then here you're stopping again, 3/4 of an inch from your rectangle ring's folded edge here. And then sewing across and then backstitch where you started sewing. Now the strap connector is attached to the gusset. We're going to set that aside for just a minute. Now you'll need your 24-inch double pull zipper and your zipper panels. So to start, you're going to need one of the lining pieces, and you're going to place your zipper so the lining, the zipper panel lining piece and the zipper are both right side facing up. And then you're just going to line up the edge of your zipper tape with the edge of the zipper panel. And you're going to clip or pin it in place. Now there will be some zipper, extra zipper outside that pass the edges of the zipper panel. That's fine. Just try to have approximately the same amount on both ends. That's going to be sewn into the seam allowance when we attach the gusset. And you're going to sew this zipper to the lining piece, but this time we're just going to do a quick basting stitch with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And now we're going to take one of our exterior zipper panels, and you'll remember that there's one longer edge here where there's no foam interfacing. That's the edge that's going to be attached to the zipper. So I'm just going to look at the pattern to see if I have a preference about which one goes on which side. Not really. And now when you're clipping these together, you want to make sure that these sides, these edges of your zipper panels are perfectly aligned, and add a clip and then do the same on this side. It's okay if they're off by a little bit, but you don't want them to be off by too much. So I prefer to just pin or clip those first. Now we do everything else in between. Now, in this next step, when you're sewing all these layers together, you're going to have to move those pulls out of the way. If you haven't sewn across the coils on the end, you don't want to push those too far. Or if you want to make sure that the pulls don't come off while you're assembling, just sew across the ends here of your zipper across the coil. I just make sure to not pull them too far to the ends. So now we're sewing with a regular stitch length all the way across here, but this time with 1/4 inch seam allowance and backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now, if you have a very wide regular foot, you should be switching to a zipper foot in this step. I have a really narrow 1/4 inch foot, so it allows me to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on a number 5 zipper like this one without switching to my zipper foot. Okay, so now we have all the 3 layers sewn together, the lining, the zipper, and the exterior. Now we're going to press the lining and the exterior away from the zipper. I find it difficult because of the foam to do all of them at once, so I usually just start with my lining and then I'll press my exterior. Now we're going to top stitch the seam allowance along the zipper with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the zipper. Now we have these 2 pieces attached to this side of the zipper and top stitched. We're going to repeat exactly the same steps and we're going to attach first, we're going to base this edge of the zipper to this edge of the lining piece and making sure again that these edges here are aligned perfectly. And then basting this in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then adding the exterior piece over top and sewing that in place with 1/4 inch seam allowance and a regular stitch length. And then pressing them both away from the zipper and top stitching. So we're repeating exactly the same steps we did to attach these 2 pieces. Okay, so now we've finished assembling the zipper panels. Now we're going to attach the zipper panels to the gusset pieces. So we're going to start here at one end. So lay your lining gusset piece right side facing up. And I'm going to show you how to attach at one end, and then we're going to be repeating the same thing for the other end of our zipper panels. So you're going to line up the lining pieces here, the corners, line them up with the corners of the lining gusset and pin or clip in place. Now, normally when you're attaching gussets, a very popular way to do it is to just sew them on and do a binding finish on the seams, but this method here shows you how to do it without needing any binding. Okay, so now we are going to only sew this portion of the zipper panels to the lining gusset lining piece. So you're sewing from this end here, back stitching, and then sew as close as you can get to the top stitching here along the zipper, and then back stitch again. And then you're going to flip this out of the way, and you're going to do the same thing on this side. I find it easier if you flip it over and sew from the lining side up. That allows you to really pull away the exterior and get closer to the top stitching here. So again, back stitching, sewing as close as you can get to the top stitching, and then back stitching again. Okay, so now we have the lining side attached. We're going to do the same thing for the exterior gusset and the exterior zipper panels. So here's where we need to sort of push this out of the way. And okay, so you're pushing the rectangle ring out of the way, and then you're lining up these corners, and you're only clipping the two exterior layers. So you see your lining layer is pushed away here. And then we're doing the same for the other side here. Okay, and then again, we're doing the same thing. So you're going to push that lining layer away, and you're going to sew from the exterior side here. You're going to back stitch, sew as close as you can get to the top stitching along the zipper, and then back stitch again. And then you're doing the same for this portion right here. This is sewn on this portion and this portion, but there's nothing sewn here across the zipper. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to sew this tiny portion just across where the zipper tape is. So you start at that stitching here, and you end at this stitching here, and you back stitch at the beginning and the end. And this time you're doing that through all of the layers, the exterior and the lining and the zipper. So now you're going to flip the gusset away, just the exterior gusset, And underneath here, I want you to pull away the lining part and just add a pin here to keep those together. And now we're going to top stitch that seam allowance here along the top edge of the gusset all the way across, and we're not including the lining in that top stitching. Just a tiny little portion here where the zipper is located will be included, but the rest is not included. We want the lining and the exterior zipper panels to stay apart. Okay, so this is what it should look like at this point. So if you flip it over, there's our gusset lining and all the exterior pieces. So now we're going to do exactly what we just did to attach the other ends of the gusset to this end of our zipper panels. So it might get a little bit awkward here because you're going to start creating a loop with your fabric. So there's your gusset lining piece, and you lay it flat, and then you place your gusset zipper panels so that they are right sides together. You're pulling aside the exterior zipper panel, and you're going to attach again just this small portion of the lining pieces together, backstitch, so across towards the top stitching, backstitch again. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm not going to re-explain it, I'm just going to do it, and you can watch as I do it. So we're repeating all of the same exact steps. And now there we have it, our completely assembled gusset. Here it is from the exterior. and then flip it over and you can see it from the lining side. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to complete the final assembly of our bag.